Today I'm sharing a story from the Dhammapada called The Weaver's Daughter. This can be taken as part 2 of our discussion from last week. And the topic is about ignorance of ignorance. And what ignorance? Ignorance of dependent origination. Okay, so let me just explain. So this Dhammapada is 174. The whole Dhammapada reads as follows. The world is indeed blind. Few are those who deeply see. Like the birds escaping from a net, few will go to heaven. Okay. Okay, I would like to read the story behind this Dhammapada like what I did for last week. It's translated by Belingame from Pali. So the stories behind Dhammapada are from the commentary, right? So Dhammapada, we know, are short verses from the Khuddaka Nikaya, the Dhammapada. And all these short verses in themselves are very inspiring of insights and practice. But what is more interesting is if you read the story behind Dhammapada, your understanding of the context, why the Buddha uttered those verses will be even better. Okay, so it gives you gives you the flesh and blood, of the verses taught by the Buddha, and give us a glimpse of how Buddha taught. Okay, very contextualized, very individualized to the people that he talked to. So I will read the suttas from. Okay, wait, my windows. Okay. So I'll just read this. You can just follow the reading. Okay. The Weaver's Daughter. The world is indeed blind. This instruction was given by the teacher while he was in residence at Agalawa Shrine, with reference to a certain weaver's daughter. For one day, when the teacher came to Alawi, the residents of Alawi invited him to a meal and gave alms. At the end of the meal, the teacher spoke the words of thanksgiving, saying, "Practice meditation on death, saying to yourselves, uncertain is my life, certain is my death. I shall surely die. Death will be the termination of my life. Life is unstable. Death is sure. For they that have not practiced meditation on death will tremble and fear when their last hour comes, and will die screaming screams of terror, even as a man without a stick, on seeing a snake, is stricken with fear. For those who have practiced meditation on death will have no fear when their last hour comes, but will be like a steadfast man who, seeing a snake even afar off, takes it up with his stick and tosses it away. Therefore, practice meditation on death." With a single exception, all those who heard this discourse remained absorbed in their worldly duties as before. Only a single weaver's daughter, about 16 years of age, said to herself, "Marvelous indeed is the speech of the Buddhas. It behooves me to practice meditation on death." And she did nothing else but practice meditation on death day and night. The teacher left Alawi and went to Jetavana. Then that maiden for 3 years developed just the meditation on death. Now one day, as the teacher surveyed the world at early dawn, he perceived that this maiden had entered the net of his knowledge. When he saw her, he considered within himself, what will happen? And he became aware of the following. From the day when this maiden heard my discourse on the Dhamma, she has practiced meditation on death for 3 years. I will now go to Alawi and ask this maiden 4 questions. On each of the 4 points, she will answer me correctly, and I will congratulate her. I will then pronounce the stanza, "This world is indeed blind." At the conclusion of the stanza, she will be established in the fruit of stream entry. By reason of her, my discourse will be profitable to the multitude besides. So the teacher, with his retinue of 500 monks, departed from Jetavana and in due course arrived at Agalawa Monastery. When the people of Alawi heard that the teacher had come, they went to the monastery and invited him to be their guest. That maiden also heard that he had come, and her heart was filled with joy at the thought. Here has come, so people say, one that is my father, my master, my teacher, one whose countenance is like the full moon, the mighty Gautama Buddha. And she reflected, now, for the first time in 3 years, I am to see the teacher, the hue of whose body is as the hue of gold. Now I am to be permitted to behold his body, whose hue is as the hue of gold, and to hear him preach the sublime Dhamma, containing within itself all sweetness. But her father, on his way to the workshop, said to her, "Daughter, a garment of a customer is on the loom, and the span of it is yet incomplete. I must finish it today. Quickly, replenish the shuttle and bring it to me." Thought the maiden, "It was my desire to hear the teacher preach the Dhamma, but my father has thus addressed me. Shall I hear the teacher preach the Dhamma, or replenish the shuttle and carry it to my father?" Then this thought occurred to her. If I should fail to bring my father the shuttle, he would strike me and beat me. Therefore, I will first replenish the shuttle and give it to him, and wait until afterwards to hear the Dhamma. So she sat down on the stool and replenished the shuttle. The people of Alawi waited upon the teacher and provided him with food. And when the meal was over, took his bowl and stood waiting for him to speak the words of rejoicing with the merits of the donors. Said the teacher, "I came here on a journey of 30 leagues for the sake of a certain maiden. As yet she finds no opportunity to be present. When she finds the opportunity to be present, I will speak the words of rejoicing." Having so said, he sat down and remained silent. Likewise, his hearers also remain silent. When the teacher is silent, neither men nor gods dare utter a sound. When the maiden had replenished the shuttle, she put it in her basket and set out in the direction of her father's workshop. On her way, she stopped in the outer circle of the congregation and stood gazing at the teacher. The teacher also lifted up his head and gazed at her. By his manner of gazing at her, she knew. The teacher sitting in such a congregation signifies by gazing at me that he desires me to come, that his sole desire is that I come into his very presence. So she set her shuttle basket on the ground and went into the presence of the teacher. But why did the teacher gaze at her? The following thought, we are told, occurred to him. If this maiden leaves, she will die as a worldling, and her future state will be uncertain. But if she comes to me, she will depart established in the fruit of stream entry, and her future state will be certain, for she will be reborn in the world of the Tusita gods. We are told that there was no escape from death for her that day. At the mere hint of his look, she approached the teacher, and penetrating the rays of six-colored light that shone from his body, she paid obeisance to him and stood respectfully at one side. No sooner had she paid obeisance to the teacher and taken her stand beside him, seated in silence in the midst of the assemblage there gathered together. Then he thus addressed her. Maiden, from where do you come? I do not know, Reverend Sir. Where are you going? I do not know, Reverend Sir. Do you not know? I know, Reverend Sir. Do you know? I do not know, Reverend Sir. Thus the teacher asked her 4 questions. The multitude were offended and said, "Look, this daughter of a weaver talks as she pleases with the supremely enlightened one." When he asked her, "From where do you come?" she should have answered, "From the weaver's house." And when he asked her, "Where are you going?" she should have answered, "To the weaver's workshop." The teacher put the multitude to silence and asked her, "Maiden, when I asked you, from where do you come? Why did you say, I do not know?" She answered, "Reverend Sir, you yourself know that I came from the house of my father, a weaver. So when you asked me, from where do you come? I knew very well that your meaning was, from where did you come when you were reborn here? But as for me, from where I came when I was reborn here, that I do not know." Then the teacher said to her, well said, O maiden. You have answered correctly the question I asked you." Thus did the teacher congratulate her, and having done so, he asked her yet another question. "When I asked you, where are you going? Why did you say, I do not know?" "Reverend Sir, you yourself know that I was going to the weaver's workshop with my shuttle basket in hand. So when you asked me, where are you going? I knew very well that your meaning was, when you pass away, where will you be reborn? But as for me, where I shall be reborn when I have passed from this present existence, that I do not know." Then the teacher said to her, "You have answered correctly the question I asked you." Thus did the teacher congratulate her the second time, and having so done, asked her yet another question. "When I asked you, do you not know? Why did you say, I know?" "Reverend Sir, this I know, that I shall surely die, and therefore I said so." Then the teacher said to her, "You have answered correctly the question I asked you." Thus did the teacher congratulate her the third time, and having done so, he asked her yet another question. "When I asked you, do you know? Why did you say, I do not know?" "This only do I know, Reverend Sir, that I shall surely die, but at what time I shall die, whether in the night or in the daytime, whether in the morning or at some other time, that I do not know, and therefore I said so." Then said the teacher to her, "You have answered correctly the question I asked you." Thus did the teacher congratulate her the fourth time, and having so done, addressed the assemblage as follows. "Those among you who failed to understand the words she spoke, you only were offended. For those who lack the eye of understanding, they only are blind. Those who possess the eye of understanding, they only see." So saying, he pronounced the following stanza. "This world is indeed blind. Few are those who deeply see. Like birds escaping from a net, few will go to heaven." At the conclusion of the discourse, that maiden was established the fruit of stream entry. Then the maiden took her shuttle basket and went to her father. He was asleep even as he sat at the loom. Not observing that he was asleep, she presented the shuttle basket. As she did so, the basket hit the tip of the loom and fell with a clatter. Her father awoke and accidentally, as a result of taking hold of the loom, gave it a pull, whereupon the tip of the loom swung around and struck the maiden in the breast. Then and there, she died and was reborn in the world of the Tusita gods. Her father looked at her as she lay there, her whole body spotted with blood, and saw that she was dead. Straightway, there arose within him intense grief, wailing, "There is none other that can extinguish my grief." He went to the teacher and told him what had happened. Reverend Sir, said he, extinguish my grief. The teacher comforted him, saying, grieve not, disciple, for in the round of existences without conceivable beginning, you have even thus, over the death of your daughter, shed tears more abundant than the water contained in the 4 great oceans. In this way, the teacher discoursed on the ground of existences without conceivable beginning. The disciple's grief was assuaged, and he requested the teacher for the going forth. Afterwards, he gained acceptance into the order and in no long time attained arahantship. So this is the discourse, this is the story behind the Dhammapada. What do y'all think? When I read this story, it felt to me like a Disney cartoon. You know, Disney usually have a girl, you know, and then her adventure, and then her growth, and her coming of age. And this appears like that. And so it's very moving. And I was struck because many of us, you know, are like leading lives as if knowing what we're doing, you know, very sure of whatever we're doing and the sense of meaning in everything we do. And yet, the question that the Buddha asked her, she said, I do not know, you know? And this girl is very special because for 3 years, she had been practicing Marananusati, mindfulness of death, every day, you know, for 3 years. So I can imagine that her mind must be very pure, you know, because Marananusati is a form of samatha practice. It's a form of practice that can lead us to concentration that can be deep enough for us to realize the Four Noble Truths. But of course, you need teacher to guide, you know, not just because concentration is not that uncommon even in ancient India before the Buddha's time. So, but the practice of Marananusati can cause the mind to be so wholesome because I mean you can try to practice Marananusati. Your mind needs to be really, really you need to be very relaxed and a lot of sense of renunciation, non-clinging. Otherwise, it's very hard to practice mindfulness on death. So you need to really, really let go. And moment to moment, you're always coming to terms. So, so I can imagine her mind must be very pure and very, very primed and fertile for the teachings of the Buddha. And the questions of the Buddha, everybody in the assembly couldn't understand, but this lady, this maiden, could, you know, knew what the Buddha was referring to because she's been practicing mindfulness of death. So surely day-to-day worldly existence, always there is a context about death behind it. And so her mind must be very pure and very primed for wisdom to mature. So that's my imagination, you know, reading this story. And so sometimes when I imagine, I like to draw. So this is how it is like. In front of the Buddha is different. So you can see the description. She was going through color of lights in front of the Buddha. So, I mean, for us, when we listen to Dhamma, either we listen to YouTube or we listen to Zoom, or at most, you know, we go to a monastery and we listen to a Bante or an Ajahn or a Sayadaw, and then yeah, sometimes if the Sayadaw is very, the Dhamma is very pure, there's a lot of joy. Even with the eyes closed, you can sense a kind of a light around it. Or the Ajahn has very strong metta, you know, we can feel a kind of a light. But I'm sure, it's nothing compared to the Buddha, right? So in front of the Buddha, the feeling and the ambience and the atmosphere, the vibes must be really different. So it was described vividly in that story. So that's why I like it very much. So when I read the Five Laymen, right, the time I was preparing to give a talk, so I just flipped that book by Balangame and saw these Five Laymen. So I prepared the Five Laymen. Then after that, I flip again, is this maiden's story. Then I read it and I feel that these two Dhammapada are two sides of the same coin. The Five Laymen, about the different kinds of conditionality. And the Weaver's Daughter's talk about, I don't know where I came from and don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die. So this ignorance, the Buddha commented on this Dhammapada of those who the world is like the world is indeed blind, blind of what? So this phrase was really talking about everyone in the assembly, of course, including the maiden, that you don't know. Your answer is correct, you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know when you're going to die. So all of us are indeed blind. But those who can see, you can escape. But what do those who can see? So so I have I mean, I use this particular story and then to reflect on what did the Buddha mean when he says the world is blind. Blind to what? And what did the Buddha means when he says, if you can see, to see what, right? And the context is about the maiden not knowing where did she come from and not knowing where is she going and when is he going to die. Okay, so then I found this in other parts of the Tipitaka. This is from the Mahanidana Sutta. This dependent origination is profound, Ananda, and profound it appears. And Ananda, it is through not understanding, through not penetrating it, that this generation has become a tangled skein, a knotted ball of thread, matted as the roots in bed of reeds, and finds no way out of the round of rebirths with its states of loss, unhappy destinations, and perditions. So this one way to interpret what are we blind to and what do we see when we escape. So, and that is dependent origination. Dependent origination is found everywhere inside the Four Noble Truths, the causation of dukkha and the causation of nirodha. How do we escape from the causation, from nirodha? Then this is from Majjhima Nikaya. One who sees dependent origination sees Dhamma, and one who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. Okay. Yeah. So dependent origination is represented using the 12 links. Okay. Last week I talked about dependent origination represented in terms of this arise that come to be in terms of condition phenomenon, right? I explained what is the condition, what is the result, and what is the conditional force. I explained there are 4 conditional force. One of them, I explained 24, and the 24 can be distilled into 4. The first one is karma conditionality or karma pachayo, right? So that is one way of, that is one way in the Abhidhamma understanding. The 12 links is found in the Sutta, okay? In many places in the Sutta. So this 12 link of dependent origination, you can see from here that what is the cause of death is birth. What is the cause of birth is becoming. And what is the cause of becoming is because of clinging, it's because of craving, because of feeling, contact, 6 sense bases, mental, material phenomenon, consciousness, volitional formations, and ignorance, right? And then how does karma lead to rebirth consciousness? It is because of karma pachayo, is karma conditionality. And becoming is also, there is a karma becoming and existence becoming. And from karma becoming to existence becoming, the connecting manner, the how the condition leads to effect is karma conditioning, karma pachayo. So we need to see dependent origination, the 12 links. And if we understand 12 links and you correlate it with the Dhammapada story, these 12 links is the most important condition phenomenon because it determines existence after existence after existence, determines our samsara, right? Okay. Okay. And in the 12 links, we can see that how come we have craving? Can we not have craving? Of course, when your mind is very peaceful, you have no attachment. But is there no attachment already? Are you an anagami? Surely we know ourselves, right? So craving is not something that we can will it away. So what is the cause of craving? So craving is caused by feelings, which is caused by contact of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, of things around us, music and chicken and so on. And this is related to one of the conditionality I explained last week also, called aramana pachayo, or object conditioning. Helpless, when you come across this object, either the eye object, ears object, or or even mind object. Mind object is so many, so varied, so infinite. It involves all kinds of concepts. Perception of something can become a concept and your thinking. So all kinds of concepts, all kinds of memories, all kinds of feelings, they are all mind objects. So once you're struck with the object, there is that object conditioning, and then you cannot help it but has feeling. When you're feeling, you will have preferences, and that is the beginning of your craving. And when you have preferences enough, there'll be a kind of maybe it forms your personality, forms your character, and then you have a certain attachment to certain lifestyle, to certain views, to certain to even life itself, and ultimately to yourself, and that is clinging. All different kinds of attachment, whether we are aware or not. You can see our social media posting, they're all full of clinging, right? And then because of this craving and clinging, all of us will behave in such a way to perpetuate the happy feelings, or to be away from unpleasant feelings. And so all sorts of behaviors to avoid the displeasures. And the wise people will use wholesome methods, and the unwise one will use unwholesome method. Wholesome method, unwholesome method, they're all just karmic force. You have a karmic force. And because of that, when we die, there is a helpless conditionality of karma pachayo, which I talked about just now. Because of karma, the last thought moment, you cannot control what you dream. You cannot control what you think, especially when the oxygen level is low. I mean, Li Hui, you work in the hospital, you know, right? So it's not that, oh, I'm a meditator, I'll be fine. I mean, who knows, right? So its karmic force is quite we are vulnerable. Ultimately, we are all very vulnerable. So the karmic force will come in and will condition what you think and what you dream and what is your object, and then you'll be reborn, right? So this was the second pachayo that I mentioned last week. And the third one is the Upanisa pachayo. I mean, why did the weaver's daughter, could answer the Buddha so correctly? Do you know? I do not know. Where do you come from? I do not know. Where are you going? I do not know. How come she can answer like that and score, distinction? Whereas everybody study very hard, and where did I come from? Okay, I came from, my mother's womb, and so on, right? They can use their intellect. But if you use your intellect, there are certain things in the world intellect are not enough. So, but how come Weaver's daughter? No, because she has been practicing Marananusati for 3 years. So this is the decisive support conditionality, right? And then the Buddha was her Aramanapachayo, her object conditionality. But of course, her reference for the Buddha, not everybody have respect for the Buddha. Like these 5 lay men, and one of them is sleeping like a snake, another one is digging the ground like an earthworm. How come they cannot listen to the Buddha? Even the Buddha was in front of them because of their past many, many lives as a snake, as an earthworm. So this is decisive support conditionality. Whereas for for the weaver's daughter, she has so much respect for the Buddha, regarded him like a father, like a master. So in front of the Buddha, her mind is so wholesome, so inspired, full of faith. The 5 faculties must be very ripe in front of the Buddha for her, not just for anyone. So that is Upanisa Pachayo also. So there's a conditionality that's ripening in her. And of course, Ati Pachayo is, if you have this wholesome mind state, surely there will be mindfulness. And in front of the Buddha, with the metta from the Buddha, and plus maybe your practice of Maranasati, your mind is very primed for concentration. So when the mind is wholesome, there's concentration, wisdom happens. When there's concentration, wisdom will arise because of concentration is a proximate cause for wisdom. So this is presence conditionality. When there's wisdom, there is mindfulness. So there's a psychological law. When the mind is wholesome, mindful, surely there is faith, there is shame and moral dread, there is tranquility, and so on. So this is presence conditionality. So you can see the forces of dependent origination works almost helplessly, but there is a knot for us to control, and that is the karma, the choice, whether you want to practice. The Buddha told you to practice. Do you want to practice or not? You go and practice. That's karma, and the karma causes your good rebirth, but also causes your subsequent consciousness. And also the practice gives rise to decisive support conditionality. So, and also your choice of what object strike your eyes and ears. So and all this depends on your behavior. So there's certain part we can control, but the large part we can't control. It's like us planting a garden. You can water because it is dry. You can weed, but apart from that, you cannot control how the plant will grow, which direction it will grow, when will it flower, how many flowers will come out, you can't control. Yeah, so that is combining last week and today. Okay. And I also brought up this slide from last week. So if you listen to the weaver's daughter, she's very wise. She's not like some of us, I mean, many of us, we find the Buddha's teachings wonderful because it is logical and scientific almost, and there's a certain democracy, there's a certain sort of freedom to inquire. It doesn't require blind faith. So, but when it comes to life after life after life, law of karma, some of us take it with a pinch of salt, because you can't prove it. And yeah, so that is that is something. If we were to say that isn't just because we cannot prove it, that would be an obstacle to our practice. So if you were to be like the weaver's daughter, full of faith, always mindful on death, and then full of faith in the Buddha, when the Buddha says, do you know where you come from? Straight away, she knows that I do not know where I came from. There is a previous life before this life. Where are you going? She knows there is a future life after this life. So by faith, one will understand that death is not really death. It is actually a repeat, redeath. And the redeath is actually a rebirth. And the rebirth is, and so you can't say is birth. Every birth is a rebirth. So when we say birth, aging, sickness, and death, we are really referring to rebirth, aging, sickness, and redeath, and then rebirth. So every redeath is a rebirth. And you can see there are so many realms of existence that's possible. And I would like to share some case studies of some meditators from the forest tradition. It's in Chinese. I will translate it as I read the story. So many years ago, while I was in Pa Auk Forest in Molamin, there was this article being circulated around. So it was from Malaysian Bante, you know. They say, you read this, what do you think? Then I was reading. It's very interesting. So I just read, and it's actually a record of a meditation teacher in the forest monastery in Molamin, of the disciples' practice of dependent origination when they record their past lives. And so as usual, a lot of Theravada teachers, they don't put down their name, not because of, you know, scientific accountability, the lack of it, you know, it's just a way of culture, you know, humility, you know. I say something, but I never put my authorship because it's not mine. It's like it's the, you know. So you can see there's no name involved. But I'll just read a few of the story. In the practice of dependent origination, we are not practicing for fun, for vanity, you know, for whatever sake. The understanding, the practice of it is to really understand samsara, to truly see dependent origination. And so when we practice dependent origination, what we are trying to learn is the mechanics of it. So you can see the terms here, ATU. ATU stands for Avijja Tanha Upadana, which means ignorance. Okay, I use my pointer, otherwise you cannot follow. ATUs means avijja, tanha, upadana, which is Pali terms for ignorance, craving, and clinging. And SK stands for sankhara and karma pachayo, which is, if you remember the 12 links of dependent origination, right? Avijja pachayo sankhara. That means ignorance, condition, volitional formation. Volitional formation conditions Vijnana, which is rebirth linking consciousness. Rebirth consciousness is the condition for Nama Rupa, which is mind and body. So, all in Pali. Yeah? So, we want to see the working of dependent origination is rooted in ignorance, craving, and clinging. Clinging and craving are the same in terms of mental quality, but one of them is stronger. It's actually like an addiction, right? So ATU is actually A and T. It's avijja and tanha, but upadana. So there are three causes, because in 12 links of dependent origination is ignorance, tanha, upadana, right? And then sankhara is one of the is found under sankhara itself, but it's also hidden under bhava, under the 10th link, which is the becoming, right? Karma is the karmic force. It is the conditionality of karma. So let's study a few. There are many here. I found it online because the script that I have, I lost it already. Don't know where it is. Then okay. I just scroll down. Okay, the first one. There was this -5 means 5 lives ago. -4 means 4 lives ago. The current life, okay, the star. The current life, he is a bhikkhu. His memory is not very good. And but after 3.5 years, he completed the syllabus of Samatha and Vipassana. Okay, but let's explore his past lives. 5 lives ago, he was a monk in China, and he practiced the 8 Samapati based on the 10 Kasinas. 8 Samapati means the 4 jhanas plus the 4 immaterial jhanas. When in the practice of psychic power, we need to learn Kasina and go all the way to immaterial jhana, and then the proficiency in the practice of samadhi in using the kasina and going into different jhanas quickly will help a person realize abhinya or psychic power. So at that time, he was able to fly. Before he died, somehow his psychic power and his kuti was lost. So he felt very aggrieved and he died on a tree. Before he died, he saw some geese, some ducks flying across, and he heard the sound of the ducks. So the avijja tanha upadana, the ignorance, is contact by the duck sound. So maybe because of that trigger, some kind of attachment and clinging to existence and reminded him of something. At that time, we know he's actually in grief. So the mind must be unwholesome, right? He was unhappy. And there was a karma of ignorance-based karma, okay? And then based on that, the grief and the loss just before he died, very unwholesome mind, even as a bhikkhu with psychic powers, he was reborn as a duck. Okay, so he was in a big group of duck, and he couldn't fly, and the eagle beat him on the face. This feels a bit odd because I've seen a YouTube video of eagles hunting ducks, right? They use their talons and grip the head. So maybe this duck was confused. Is it the beak or the talons? So, but anyway, he recalled as he was bitten at the face, and the eagle took him off, and he was angry at the eagle, and then he was thinking, if only I could be bigger, so that I would not be caught by the eagle, right? So this anger mind, and then this wish to be bigger. So wish to be bigger is like you're attached to existence again, You have an idea that a bigger existence is good. Okay? These are all ignorance and wrong view. And then at that time, the karma must be rooted in anger, right? So because of this anger, this grief, he was reborn as a goat, which is bigger. And then he saw the dog, don't have to work, is so nice. And when the master killed him, he was having in this mind, if I could be strong, I would not be killed and I can fight back. So in that mind, he has this ignorance that existence is good, is still good. There's attachment, is upadana to existence, right? And there's an idea that beings exist. So there's a certain wrong view, not knowing anatta, not knowing non-self, right? So there's this ignorance, and then there's clinging to existence, and there's craving for existence, craving for a being which is bigger and stronger so that I can fight back. And the karma was anger against the master. So as a result of that, he was reborn as a buffalo. As a buffalo, of course, you're very strong, but you have to work very hard and very tired. And at that time, before he died, he was very thirsty. So he was, so this thirsty, so the avijja is actually very hidden, ignorance. All of us, if we do not make any wishes, all of us have a tendency to cling on to existence. We want to live. Okay? We want to exist. Either clinging to existence or clinging to male form, female form, deva form, human form, and so on. These are all wrong views. These are all ignorance. Okay, so and there's clinging, and so ignorance and attachment are two sides of the same coin. So because you think that existence is meaningful and existence as a deva, as a human or a whatever is meaningful. You have attachment to the existence. So ignorance and attachment are two sides of the same coin. So there's that ignorance and attachment, and there is some kind of aversion mind as the karma. And then just before he died, he became a crab because he wanted to drink. Okay, so this could be attachment to sensual pleasures of water. And the crab, before he died, saw Bhikkhu flying, and somehow the crab in his mind has a reverence for the Bhikkhu. So when he died, the attachment is to be a bhikkhu. Although surely the crab do not have concept of what, but the crab saw this being flying and there's a certain wholesome mind. Do you believe that animals can think? Do you believe that animals can have feelings? Okay. You can, if you have a pet, like recently I told my friend that cats are very good pets because they're very smart. Then he said that he has a tortoise. His tortoise is also very smart. I didn't know tortoise is smart, but he is a owner of a pet tortoise. Can tell me tortoise have a mind of its own, have a character. So I suppose if maybe it is true, even crabs and earthworm has got personality if we know them enough. I only know mammals, some apes, some monkeys, some horse, they actually can be caring. Some rats can try to save other rats. Some birds can also have that kind of feeling. So, and higher evolved animals have that, but maybe, crabs also can have that. But in this case, he recalled he was a crab. And when he saw a bhikkhu, there was a mind of respect. So if you understand the dependent origination, the conditionality, so that could be because he was a monk before. There is a decisive support condition, upanisaya pachayo again in this crab. So he's planted a seed of practice and reverence for the triple gem 5 lives ago. And even as a crab, there is a certain feeling and reverence for the bhikkhu. So when he died, the ignorance is still there, attachment to the life of a bhikkhu. And then the karma is a reverence. Reverence to a bhikkhu is a wholesome karma. So this life, he was reborn as a human and somehow, became a monk. So some of us, we are monks. Some of us, we are never monks or nuns this life. And yet, we have a lot of reverence for the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Why? Maybe because of something in the past, right? So in a way, if we do not know people's past, we can never really tell what is the working of this person's mind. So anyway, this bhikkhu didn't have good memories. Why? Is it karma? Well, in this case, it sounded more like decisive support condition. So many lives as animals. So this life, the intellect is not very strong. So it's decisive support conditionality. And for 3.5 years practicing and finally finished it. But the fact that he could finish 3.5 years is also quite good. And could be because 5 lives ago, he was a Chinese Mahayana monk with Sichan Pating, the 8th Samapati. So yeah, the seed was planted many lives ago. And the next life, he was a Samanera. And then he couldn't see the next one. So it could mean many things, either concentration not enough, or the next one is Arahant. I'll just do a second case study. The rest, we don't have time, but this is also quite interesting. This bhikkhu was a hunter long ago. After the death of the hunter, was for many, many lives was a bird. Until the First World War. First World War is like 1911, around that time, right? He was keeping precept and he was practicing anapanasati. There was no nimitta. He's got 2 sons. Somehow on the road, he was he died from an explosion. So he died young. Okay. Then after that First World War life, right? He was reborn in Myanmar, poor, and he was volunteering to build a pagoda. He was married with 3 cute children and practiced Anapanasati too, no nimitta. And around Second World War, was also killed. So maybe his lives as a hunter caused him to have short human lives, killed by violence, like explosion. He didn't say, sometimes when we encounter something, it may be due to karma. Sometimes it's not due to karma. It could be just physical laws and biological law and so on. But you have to see the pattern. If the pattern is repeatedly always similar, it's probably karma related. So this gentleman who died like all young, die young, could be because of the killing karma from being a hunter. And when he died, because he built pagoda, this was the karma that resulted in the present life as a bhikkhu. And before the bhikkhu, he's got 2 sons. So this bhikkhu and the sons may be connected in the past also. Many of the people that we have around ourselves, the families, our friends, maybe our future husband or wife and so on, we might be connected with one another if we could see, right? And within 3 days, he has got nimitta, and he dana sangati robes to bhikkhu, and he made a determination to go to heaven. So determination to go to heaven, you can see there's ignorance about existence and the not knowing dukkha, attachment to rebirth as a heavenly being. So this is ignorance and attachment. And if he has been practicing as a bhikkhu, the precept alone can make his wish come true. So if you want to be heaven, he'll be heaven, So the next life, he was reborn in the heavenly realm. When he died, the offering of robes in the previous life, which is this life, continued to support him to become a heavenly being again. From the heavenly being, second life, he became an arahant. So there are many, many other interesting stories, but you can Google this. It's, I think, it's from some Chinese disciples that they put it online. Yeah, so that's quite interesting. Let me just finish the talk and then we can discuss again. So you can see many of us, we practice the Dhamma because Dhamma is so beautiful and immediately we can like go into very peace. But if you don't see dependent origination, you have not really seen, you will still have attachment, and then even very subtle ones. I mean, maybe on good days in youth and in health, we may think that we don't have attachment, but in really times of trouble, it will show. So as long as the ignorance, attachment, and doubt, they're still there, the defilements are still there, we will be helplessly reborn and reborn and reborn, driven by ignorance, supported by karma. Okay, and the karma can be good or bad. Okay, so we make a wish, and that wish is always wisdom, ignorance and attachment related, wish of existence. But whether we are reborn in good existence or not so good existence depend on the karma. They are separate moments in our mental streams. Okay. Of course, when you do wholesome karma, there's no ignorance. How come I do wholesome karma got ignorance? It was the motivation of your wholesome karma. That is where ignorance is there. Okay. So ignorance is also known as delusion. In the Sutta, what is ignorance? Ignorance is not knowing the Four Noble Truths. In the Abhidhamma, it was elaborated. Ignorance refers to ignorance of 8 things: Four Noble Truths, the prenatal past, the post-mortem future, the past and future together, and dependent origination as a whole. Okay. And even if you just talk about Four Noble Truths, yeah. So yes, so this is the ignorance we are referring to: ignorance of dependent origination, ignorance of past before our life, before this birth, ignorance of our future rebirth, ignorance of past and future, and ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. So this is the ignorance. This is the thing that we did not see. And this was what the Buddha referred to in the Dhammapada 174, when the weaver's daughter was being asked the question, the Buddha told the whole assembly, the world is blind, and those who can see can escape. Okay, to see what? To see dependent origination. Dependent origination is, of course, we know, is also in the Four Noble Truths. Okay. This is from Lady Sayadaw, who was a very famous teacher who was around during the last Buddhist council. Sorry, I'm not sure whether he was around in the last Buddhist council, but he was strongly referenced when people study the Abhidhamma, right? So in his books, he said the Buddha taught ignorance and volitional formations to show that there is no other creator. He taught rebirth to show that as long as craving and clinging are present, there is no end to the round of rebirths. And Bhikkhu Bodhi, in his essay on dependent arising, he said, the first point of samsara cannot be discovered. No distinct beginning, only a distinct causal structure. So now, looking at dependent origination and combining the teachings of the suttas and the Abhidhamma, right? The goal of the practice, we know, is to make an end of suffering, which is the third noble truth, nirodha, nirodha, right? And if we were to explore what is suffering, we can go to the sutta, the Dhamma Cakkavala Sutta, where the Buddha explained dukkha, right? What is dukkha? And he said that the Four Noble Truth is suffering, the causation, the path leading to the cessation, and cessation. But the sequence is suffering is first noble truth, causation is second noble truth, cessation is third noble truth, and the path leading to cessation is the fourth noble truth. But among these four noble truths, there's also cause and effect. The cause of suffering is samudaya, the causation. The cause of nirodha is the Noble Eightfold Path, the path leading to the cessation of suffering, right? And why is there this arrow, suffering leading to the cessation of suffering? I didn't reference here, but it's found in this sutta called the Arya Paryasena Sutta, where the Buddha talked about the noble search. It is true, because of suffering, some people can wallow in sorrow, whereas some people, like himself, he started to search for the end of suffering. And that was the sutta about his search for the end of suffering. So suffering can sometimes lead to the search for the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So in this case, this is the Four Noble Truth with its arrows. So what is suffering? In the Dhamma Cakkavala Sutta, the Buddha said, birth, aging, sickness, death, meeting what one's dislike, separating from what one's likes, not getting what one's want. And then in summary, in short, the five aggregates of clinging is dukkha, is the first noble truth. In another sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha explained, from Samhita, I can't remember already, but this is referenced that sanku, three kinds of suffering. The suffering of suffering, ku, huai ku, suffering of change, and xing ku, suffering of being conditioned. Okay, of being conditioned. So this is the suffering. Okay. Then what is the cause of suffering? The cause of suffering in the Dhamma Cakkavala Sutta is described as craving. Craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. But what is the meaning of craving for existence, craving for non-existence? Why is there someone craving for non-existence? If somebody aspiring for nibbana, craving for non-existence, so the commentarial text describe the craving for bhavana, for existence, refers to craving with the wrong view of eternal existence. And craving for non-existence means craving with the wrong view of nihilism. There's no future life, no past lives. In another sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, when you talk about the causation, the Buddha did not simply say craving. The Buddha described dependent origination. And that is called the Three Sectarian Views, Anguttara Nikaya, book number 3. So what is the cause of suffering? So you can see birth, aging, sickness, and death. Why did it happen? Is because of birth. Why did that happen? Because of becoming, because of clinging, because of craving, because of feeling, because of contact, because of six sense bases, because of my body, because of consciousness, because of volitional formations, because of ignorance, right? And so this is a dependent origination. As long as there's this mechanism, there will be this birth, aging, sickness, death, the 5 aggregates, the 3 kinds of suffering will be there. And if we are stricken with suffering, we will want to search for the end of it, or we can just wallow in depression, That is one way, but if a person is wise enough, somehow there's good condition planted in the past, he will not wallow in nihilism, in negativity. He will want to search for an end of it. So how does it do that? So because the Buddha arose, so he followed the teaching, which is the Eightfold Path. Eightfold Path in Majjhima Nikaya, it is also described in the threefold training, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, right? So the path leading to the cessation of suffering is right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, right concentration, right view, and right thought. So when we practice accordingly, the wisdom, or when there's right concentration, the mind continue to observe the phenomenon of the world, which is actually this fathom long body. One will gradually remove the defilements part by part, and they will eradicate ignorance. When you eradicate ignorance, you can still exist, but you have no longer karmic efficacy. So when there's no karma, after death, there's no rebirth linking consciousness, there's no nama rupa, no six sense bases, no contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, and no more rebirth. And that is the end of dukkha. Okay, so Sariputta says, happiness is this nibbana. Happiness is this friend, nibbana. Okay, so like a bird being free. And the other cartoon here on your left-hand side are the various and simile used by the Buddha when he talked about sensual pleasures. It's like when you have an itch, you scratch and scratch and scratch. The scratching of an itch never cure the itch. Also like a dung beetle, happy with his feces, even though his Deva friend told him, "You're so attached to your feces. Would you like to come with me to heavenly realm?" Then the dung beetle say, "No, you can enjoy yourself in heaven. I prefer my feces." And like the Buddha used an analogy of people suffering from leprosy. The hand is so uncomfortable due to, now we know it's due to nerve damage. They can have a lot of pain or very uncomfortable feeling, and they have to roast it in fire to relieve that pain. So it's just like us. We are attached to sensual pleasures because we need the distraction, object pachayo, aramana pachayo, for us to relieve our stress, okay? So it is the other important teaching from this particular Dhammapada story is the practice of Maranussati. Mindfulness on death is taught in many places in the Buddha teaching, in the Sutta, particularly in Anguttara Nikaya. But here you can see in Sutta Nipata, in Jataka story, and in Samhita, he's also taught it. So I'll just read this because the verses from the Buddha, I feel, are very poetic, very nice. So whoever translated it, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. The nights and days go slipping by as life keeps dwindling steadily, till mortals spend like water pools. In failing rills, it all used up. Okay, this is from Samhita. Like a pool of water, every day and night, the water is just drying and drying and drying. And then another one from Sutta Nipata. As there is fear when fruits are ripe, that in the morning they will fall. So mortals are in constant fear. When they are born, that they will die. And as the fate of pots of clay, once fashioned by the potter's hand, or small or big or baked or raw, condemns them to be broken up. So mortal's life leads but to death. So it's very interesting that when fruits are ripe, there is fear. It reminds me of a friend of mine recently, lose his job, and he's in his mid-50s. He feels he's too young to retire, so he continues to look for a job. But for 6 months, first time in his life, he couldn't find a job over 6 months. He's highly qualified, used to be senior management. And now he's thinking, must I do Grab driving? Okay. So I met up with him and chat. I think some of you here who are youngish, you may not feel it, but some of us here are in our middle of our life, in our 50s and 60s. Even if somebody is fully employed, I have friends who tell me, even if they're director, senior director, group director, in senior position, every day they're grappling with what is the next thing, how do I want to come down from the stage? I mean, if you read LinkedIn or Facebook, you only see the rosy picture. But when you know them intimately, there is some anxiety related to identity, related to existence and sense of meaning. Okay, so when the fruits are ripe, the next phase is for it to rot. When you are like a young flower, you don't have this, it's just about how do I flourish, how do I bloom. Okay. Then the last one is from Jataka. The dew drop on a blade of grass vanishes when the sun comes up. Such is a human span of life. So, mother, do not hinder me. This, if you look at it, it's a little bit absurd. The dew dries up very quickly. Our human lifespan is 80 years, I mean, Singapore life expectancy average these days is 84. Women will be longer, men is a bit shorter. But how can we be compared with a dew, you see? But if you were to consider beginningless existence, 100 years is but like a lightning flash. And that is in terms of scale of time. If you consider it in the scale of size, this is a picture of the universe. Maybe if you consider universe as infinitely big, this is only a small little speck of the universe. And in this small little speck, there are so many, many galaxies, almost uncountable galaxies. In each galaxy, there are so many stars. And in each star could be like our sun. Sun is just one of the stars. There's a system of planets around it. And among all the planets, one of the smaller ones is Earth. And Earth, to us, is so big, where, I mean, if you want to walk from here to, say, Bangkok, I don't know how many days you have to walk. And it's only Singapore to Bangkok. So if you look at it, our Singapore is so small. So Singapore, ourselves is so small compared with the whole universe, just as our lifespan of 80 to 100 years is so short compared with the infinite life after life after life of samsara. And these are the things that we don't see. These are the things we are blind to. We are blind to the scale of the universe, blind to the scale of samsara, and blind to the reality of past lives and future lives. And yeah, so that is that concludes my sharing. So it's yeah. Are there any reflections or thoughts? If you have any question, I'll do my best to answer. I may not be able to answer. I may say I don't know. Okay. Any questions or feedback or reflections? Anyone?
Brother Wai Chong.
Yes, Sharon.
I have a question. Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing, thank you very much for sharing. I find that you have a very soothing voice. And when you tell the stories, I'm surprised that Dhammapada actually has this story behind. So the students in my class actually enjoy stories very much. So I think this is a new resource that I can look into. Yeah, I was very surprised at such thing. So I was wondering, what keeps you so motivated when you're talking about it? It's like, wow, you know, when I'm sharing all this experience, what keeps you going? Like after a day's work, you can still be sharing on such a selfless basis.
Yeah. So when we ask about reasons, there is not one but many, you know, and some of them are related to karma, some are related to past conditions, some are related to object, some are related to what is here and what's in it. It's basically what I just said. Like I can do it like this because there's an audience, like all of you, especially if like just this morning I was sharing with my friend about the practice of space kasina, but we are friends, you know. We're in hawker center eating, I was eating zui gui. It was not the correct atmosphere, so when I was talking about it now, I felt like I'm a bit like fumbling here and there. But here, you know, there is a, you know, we pay respect to the Buddha, we did some chanting, so the atmosphere is different. There is a facilitator like Li Hui, you know, setting the stage. And then so the ritual of it helps me to sort of take the position of a Dhamma sharer. So it's different, you know. And why do I share it so passionately? I mean, if you know me in other times, oh, I'm very xiao one, okay. I like to run, I do a lot of work, I'm very busy. If I'm a doctor seeing patients, I'm doing, like yesterday I was meeting at AIC, I'm a different personality. So, but when it comes to this setting, this ritual, and then also talking about the Dhamma, it's different already. I speak differently. Uh, I share passionately because I really have a lot of faith from the Buddha's teachings related to my practice under the teacher and my meditation, and also the reading beforehand. Also because I've suffered before, you know, like I'm sure many of you here, many people who likes the Dhamma because they have suffered before. It addressed certain issues that worldly successes and worldly pleasures cannot touch enough. Of course, we have not given up, you know, but and that is another story. But we know that is not the most meaningful of things to do. We need to go back to the Buddha's teachings because we have suffered before. We know no matter all the money in the world, all the intellect in the world, all the health in the world, all the relationship in the world cannot appease when in the deepest, the darkest of the nights. Okay, so that's why the Dhamma is so important, so precious. And when every time we pay respect to the Buddha, this is really planting a seed. The next time when we're really down, by hearing the idea that Buddha, you know, because of the seed of us planting, you know, this will actually change our mind immediately from darkness to brightness. Okay, so because of this reason, when I share the Dhamma, I am full of respect, full of reverence. Then, yeah, also, why do I have, why is my voice like this? Why is, when I share the Dhamma, you know, it is effective for some people? Sometimes it's related to past lives. Some of us have taught the Dhamma before. This has been our habit and also rooted in it. And some of us here are connected from the past. So like some people, when they listen to Dr. Wai Chong, he's talking rubbish, always talk about those things. Then they like another person teaching. It's not because of merits of any personality. Sometimes it's because of connection from the past. So in the understanding of dependent origination, many causes lead to many effects. It's not one cause cause one effect, or many causes causes one effect, or one cause causing many effects. It's actually many causes condition many effects, and it's very dynamic, almost unfathomable. So the Buddha says the law of karma is unfathomable. But the key is in the dependent origin, in the 12 links. And once you understand it, especially if you also understand the conditionality, you start to see that, yeah, while it is complex and complicated, there is a certain rule of thumb. It's about karma, it's about conditioning, it's about what hits your mind, the object, and what is the helpless part of it. The helplessness of 4 elements and the mind connecting with one another. Yeah. Thanks for the question. It allows me to elaborate more.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to share because it made a difference. Like you mentioned, it's very true. I went through suffering that now when I look back, I can't believe that I actually survived. I most probably would have died. Just at that moment, just having a talk, let's say it could be by a sifu or by someone like yourself, just that advice sometimes is what it is, like that hand that comes in to pull you out. Yeah, it could be it stops someone from suicide or stops someone from quitting a job. Yeah, so I'm very thankful for sessions like this. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It is okay to finish early also, I think. But of course, we have up to 9:30 if we want. Yeah.
Does any have any questions? No? Brother Wai Chong, I just want to say thank you. Like it was a very, I think when you were sharing halfway, I record so I have another friend, Erica, she shared something about like reflex arc. Then when you shared about the helplessness part, you're suddenly like, wow, like also wise, like, and the 12, I feel like the 12 dependent origination, I feel like it's still very hard for me to break out of it. But the way I'm trying is like switch the context, like you said last time, like switch the object. Yeah. And I think one thing that you said about the reverse daughter, about the meditation on death, what I felt like I learned from today is not just meditation on death, but like on like even relationships or like things that you think will always be there. Because when you don't reflect that it can change, when it suddenly changes, you are so shaken, exactly like how you describe, you know, like you are so scared and frightened, and you're not prepared and you're not ready. Yeah, so maybe not just death, but like even for the smallest, like the simplest things in our lives, like relationships with our loved ones, yeah, we can always reflect that it can happen, you know, like it's not that it won't happen. If you don't even think about it, and when it happens, it will really like just, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So it really shake you, yeah. So yeah, that was my reflection.
Thank you. Actually, I also hope that you can also see there's a sense of meaning here, you know, like because samsara is like that, right? One round after another. And looking at the conditionality and so on, it might just occur to us that the most meaningful thing to do is to help people, help ourselves, because it's karma and character building. And because practice Eightfold Path is not that easy. We need a lot of good karma, so that we can be reborn as human or as deva. And we also need a lot of good seeds so that we can always encounter teachers and Dharma practice. And so that when there is opportunity, we practice Eightfold Path, it can be very smooth and very fast. And then we can attain to Nibbana completely. So that is like the most important thing. But of course, we are not all monks and nuns, right? Why? Then when we actually understand conditionality, we also can accept it, Not all of us are primed that way. Also, not all of us are practicing that way. We might have other kinds of conditions that is applying in our life, and also we might be polishing other aspects of our character that will become conducive for us, to practice in the future lives. Or it could be that some of us just owe another person a favor, and we want to keep the promise. That's why we are doing what we're doing, Yeah, so dependent origination, samsara, life, afterlife is important to know. Yeah.
Brother Wai Chong, can I ask another question? So I'm just very curious, the process of death in the end, actually what does the person see and what do they go through?
So when we are dying, as a doctor, right, all of us die in different ways. It could be usually it's related to the heart and lung stopping. For example, if a heart attack, then the blood doesn't go to the heart is deprived of oxygen, so it doesn't pump any blood. And then the brain will be deprived of oxygen, and then the brain stem, which controls our heart and lungs function, will also stop. Then we also stop breathing. Another way is you have a massive stroke, or maybe severe kidney failure, or severe infection that causes the blood pressure to be low by itself, for other reasons. And the brain is deprived of oxygen, and then the brain stem is deprived of oxygen, and so the heart and lungs also will stop. So it is all related to those mechanisms, right? So necessarily when a person is dying, all the organs become failed because lack of oxygen everywhere, right? And so what we see is somebody becoming immobile. And then at the beginning, maybe they will start to have seizure fits. Sometimes they will have delirium where we start to see vision, hallucinating. Some of them may be just quiet, and the breathing pattern become abnormal, and the heart rate becomes slower and slower until it stops. So this is the physical signs. But what is going through their mind? As external person, we can't tell because we cannot read the mind. So, but when they're having delirium, they are saying things, they are seeing things, we maybe from that we can tell that they are seeing certain visions. How do we know what actually goes through in our mind? One way is to read the Sutta, okay, and study the commentaries, ask the teachers. Another way is actually we practice meditation. When the mind is very, very pure, it is very agile, very flexible, very effective. The memory become very sharp and can recall things, even all the way to the childhood and our existence in the mother's womb, all the way to previous lives, and also how that previous being died, what went through the mind. Because in order to understand dependent origination, in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, we must understand the mind, the workings of the mind, and the workings of the body. So we need to have the details of how does the mind works, what is the interaction with external objects, and then what the mind happens. So by knowing that, we will be able to analyze the state of mind of a person dying as well. Okay. So it's true, people who have meditated, they could tell us that this is what actually went through our minds when we are dying. The last thought process, a person will see either the vision of the action just before the next rebirth, or a vision of a symbol of the action, or the vision of the destiny. So it's through such meditators, we know that the last thought process, some people see light, and the next birth, they become a deva. Some people see red color, the next rebirth, they become a human. Some people see offering flower to the Buddha, next rebirth, become a human or a deva. Then they explore why. Because when they offer flower, there was a motivation of having a good rebirth as a human or a deva. Or they may not have the concept of human or deva. They may not even occur to them they want to be reborn as human or deva, but they know that they want to be reborn. They want to exist. So for all these reasons, motivate a person to offer the flower so they can see that, or they can see a flower, or they could see perhaps a knife, or they could see that they were actually killing a chicken, or they're stealing something. So for all these, for the meditators who could recall their past existences and analyze the minds, they could see that the last thought moment is not empty. The mind is very rich. They actually have visions of activities. And that activities, immediately after that, there is a rebirth consciousness. And the insight tells them there is a causal relationship. It is because of this action, there's this rebirth. And this action is a good one, this rebirth is a good one. This action is a bad one, this rebirth is a bad one. So they had no doubt about the law of karma. And by having these insights, they will know that, none of us is perfect. We have the whole day, wholesome karma, unwholesome karma, so many. What actually happened in our death, we cannot guarantee. But generally, if generally we keep precepts, generally, we are not perhaps like certain unfortunate people who generally like to steal, like to kill, like to harm, like to disturb people. We generally are nice, kind, caring, compassionate. May or may not be Buddhist, like if you're, say, just a auntie, always caring about your children, your grandchildren, always caring about your pet, your husband. Like recently, I'm taking care of this lady with dementia. She was being sued by her adopted daughters because she married this man who is a divorcee with his children, and he took care of them from babies until they grown up. And yet, because the husband willed a lot of property to her, and when she got dementia, her children sued, and the things are under their children's name, and she lost everything to them. And yet, she's very peaceful because she was a very caring person. I knew it because I know all her friends. I knew her before even she developed dementia. So I believe, based on these real life examples, if a person's personality is one that is kind, patient, caring, you have no fear about dementia, delirium, or death. I've also seen people, I have a 100-year-old patient. Before he died, he was very peaceful. He was a war hero. The Japanese, during World War II, wanted to go into his household. He lived in Okay, I don't know during World War II where he lived, but he was at the gate. His sisters, his children, his wife is inside the house. He prevented the Japanese soldiers from going in, and the soldiers admire his courage, so did not go in. And he saved the whole family. And the family were full of respect for him, loved him very much. Some of them want him to be Christian, some want him to be Buddhist, but he just stayed neutral. And when I asked him, what would you like for yourself? He says, I'm very happy now. Then I go through advanced care planning with him. Would you like nasogastric tube feeding? He says, it's okay to have. It's also okay not to have. Would you like surgery? It's okay to have surgery, whatever doctor said. So he was very at peace, not like very strong with a lot of opinions, no fear in him. And he died very peacefully. So I've seen also another lady in her 90s, also smiling, laughing all the time, despite the dementia. So, and she has been a very devout Buddhist, always chanting Amitofo and all that. So I think from these examples, near our death, we cannot hide. Our personality, our character, our habit will show. If you have been and it is not dependent on your religion also. So if you've been a caring person, kind person, you will have a good death. But of course, as Buddhists, if you have a right view, you'll always be on the Dharma path until the end of samsara. If you're not Buddhist, you may not have an understanding that samsara is suffering, and you will always be in samsara. And samsara sometimes, is good. Sometimes it's not very good. Like even a bhikkhu that you saw, having 8 samapatti, can be reborn as a duck. After duck becomes a goat. After goat becomes a buffalo. So you can't control. Even some of us, we think that, oh, I'm teaching the Dhamma, I practice so well. But you never know. Just before you die, somebody switch off the light and then you're very angry and then you die. Or you like a Buddha image in front of you, but somebody come and pray in front of you, throw away your Buddha image, then you get angry and then you no good, So yeah, these are the things that we need to respect. We are all vulnerable.
So for people with dementia means that as long as they are good people, that's fine.
You see, there may be a lot of people, like another case I had many years ago. She was from Penang, lived in Tiong Bahru, walk-up apartment. So long ago already, more than 15 years ago. The daughter-in-law told me that in her younger days, she was very kind, very caring, but don't know why when she has this advanced stage of dementia, she's very restless. Lying down, she wants to sit up, want to lie down, want to sit up. Very attention-seeking. So you also cannot predict, right? Being kind for so long, how come dementia she can be so restless? Until I explored, she was an adopted daughter in her family origin in Penang. She was adopted by this family, and there was a sister prettier, smarter than her. And there was this. Yeah, so that was her life history. The rest I can only postulate. Yeah. Sometimes it is childhood trauma or some kind of some of us are very kind and nice because maybe we did not get all the love we wanted, right? So some of these things is very hard to say. Yeah. It's important for us to, no matter how well we behave, we need to have that sense of humility. We should always practice. The best is we can realize Nibbana in this very life.